What's up, guys? John here. Was just in Los Angeles, and I went all the way from downtown LA to Santa Monica through Beverly Hills. And what I've witnessed is the complete deterioration of that city. Trash everywhere, graffiti everywhere, businesses closed left, right, and center, unlike anything I could ever even imagine. I had to do walk-in talks because I didn't think many people would even believe me. So I had to show them exactly what's happening. But what I'm going to show you in this video is going to, I think, further paint the picture of where LA is really going. What the city is working on right now is a new law to allow the city to determine a tenant's rental amount. Meaning that if a landlord and a tenant have agreed on a set rent rate, maybe let's say for this example, $2,000 a month for a 2-bedroom, outside of LA or, just in the outskirts of Los Angeles, or maybe $3,000 for a 1-bedroom in a prime area in Los Angeles. The city could come in and say, you know what? You shouldn't pay $3,000. We think that you should pay $1,800 or $2,000. And that is the new rent rate. That is what you're now paying. And then the landlord's sitting there saying, you know what? Well, how do I pay my expenses? Well, what's going to happen is that landlord's not going to be able to pay their expenses. And we're going to walk into a dynamic and a situation where large institutional investors are going to benefit greatly here, because this is going to put further pressure on mom and pop landlords, giving a perfect scenario for these large all-cash buyers to step in and acquire these properties for pennies on the dollar. Because many banks right now are beginning to tighten up on their lending standards. They're getting a little bit more skittish. Look out their broader world, and what you're seeing is a lot of change, a lot of uncertainty, and banks are taking this into consideration with their underwriting. So we're walking into a scenario here where it's going to be a massive takeover of property rights. I'm going to show you on the website. I'm going to show you the sources so you can see exactly where LA is going and why I believe many cities all throughout America and throughout the world are going to be doing very similar things. For example, Canada just initiated a renter's bill of rights throughout the nation of Canada. And then you have, America, the Renters Bill of Rights, the whitehouse.gov, working on this federal. This will be national here in America. So I'm going to break this down for you. I'm going to give you the facts, show you exactly, where America's headed. I love real estate. I love real estate investing, but at the end of the day, you got to understand the rules of the game to win the game. And the rules of the game right now are getting rewritten. So if you're thinking about investing in real estate, just pay very close attention to what's really going on to help you make smart, well-informed decisions based on facts, not based on history. Because, history of real estate investing is going to be very, very different than what the future real estate investing is going to look like for a lot of real estate investors. Please hit the like button. Hit the like button. YouTube will share this content to educate the people about what's going on in America. If you'd like to fix your credit, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative item in your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free call for Monday. Take a look at this. So California is trying to drive landlords out of business, which is bad news for anyone hoping to rent a place. This came out today. And so in San Francisco, there are 52,000 apartments that are completely vacant. And the reason is that for the most part, some might be under renovation, sure. But for the most part, a lot of landlords just don't see it worth it to rent out their units. And the reason for it is because if the tenant stops paying rent or they have any type of dispute, it's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees to evict that tenant. You're probably going to have to pay that tenant a buyout to leave the unit, and it's going to probably take 6 months, a year, or 2 years to get the tenant out. And so many property owners are just opting to keep the place vacant entirely, use it as a storage unit. Right? That's a shame. But that's unfortunately what's happening. In Canada with this Renters Bill of Rights, legal aid fund to protect the tenants, right? They're doing the same thing. They're funding tenants to be able to defend themselves against landlords, right? And this also just came out where now there's rent caps on low-income housing tax credit units, which is impacting over 1 million units. This just went into law. And what they're saying here is that they need to put these rent caps in place after tenants demanded cancellation of rent and mortgage obligations. In response to 19, government assisted issuing $46 billion in emergency rental assistance to landlords with no strings attached. Now, the landlords, it wasn't Sally the hairdresser and Mike the plumber. The landlords were the big institutions. The Invitation Homes, the large institutional investors are the ones that got most of that money. It wasn't, the small mom and pop investor. And so that's why when you look on their earnings actually went up in 2020 and in 2021. Now, how could that be? When rent was optional, their earnings jumped. They skyrocketed. Well, sure, they did some small rent increases, no doubt about it. But really, when you look at the real numbers, what you'll see is that their missed rents were very, very small, like 98, 99% rents collected, right? When you look at what a lot of mom and pop landlords went through, they weren't getting 99% of the rent. That's for sure, right? Now, you have to ask yourself why. It's because this, right? They're getting the access to the funding directly. That's what was happening. Now look at what's unfolding in Los Angeles. LA City is considering motions that allow the city to be able to adjust your rent downward. Now I saw this on Twitter. I'm like, you know what? Is this real? Is this actually happening? Let's look at this. Now then I went on the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles came out yesterday, and what they said is the creation of a new petition process for renters to have their rents adjusted downward by the city. Now, the city, they say that they're there to help protect renters, but could it be, and this is just an idea that I have, could it be that it's really not to protect renters? It's to allow the city to grow in absolute power and grow real dominance over property. Because if the city owned the property, or if the city was a large, proponent of all the rights of said property, it would allow them more power, and power and control is the new wealth, right? And so when they have this level of power, when they can go in there and say, you know what, rent's not due because of an eviction moratorium, they can walk in and say, you know what, your rent actually should be this amount, or hey tenant, would you like a free attorney? Maybe your landlord is a slumlord, or whatever the title is of the day for that landlord. What this ultimately does is just give so much authority to the city, right? This isn't, in my opinion, about empowering renters. It's about empowering the city. And when we see this situation starting to ramp up, you have to ask yourself, is this the end or is this just the beginning? Now, I would argue that in 2020, during the eviction moratorium, that was kind of the first snowball. And now it's just been getting a little bit worse, progressively worse throughout Los Angeles. Now, I believe that this is just the beginning, and I think that we're going to start to see some really, really radical changes unfold. And the reason they're going to say this is because of inflation, because of landlord greed and corporate greed. They're going to have a bunch of different reasons why they have to do it. But I personally think that if you are investing in Los Angeles, you need to pay very close attention to this. You don't want to go out there buying a deal at a 5 cap or a 6 cap thinking, hey, rents are going to stay here. Look, insurance is going to go up. There's no doubt about it. State Farm, or I think it was State Farm, they just canceled 72,000 policies. Let's see here. State Farm canceled 72,000 policies. Yep. State Farm General announced that it would not renew 72,000 policies, right, statewide. So when you have these insurance companies canceling, what's that going to do? It's going to bring up insurance costs. What happens when mortgage rates go from 3% to 7%? It's going to bring up borrowing costs. What happens when it costs more to fix up and maintain properties because of inflation? It's just going to add to more and more costs. And then you have a situation where the city is working on reducing rents. To me, it just equates to one really, really big opportunity for the city. And they're going to use all these different reasons as to why they need to do this, why they need to put more pressure on these landlords. Now, I saw this, I thought it was very, very interesting. It came out 4 hours ago. Los Angeles using AI in a pilot program to predict homelessness and allocate aid. So homelessness that has not yet happened, aid that has not yet been requested, they're now saying that our AI is providing us this data to help you, right? You, the tenant, right? This is what's happening. In Los Angeles, a homelessness prevention pilot program used predictive AI to identify individuals and families at risk of becoming homeless, offering aid to help them stabilize and remain housed. Launched in 2021, the technology has helped serve nearly 800 individuals and families at risk of becoming homeless, with 86% of participants retaining permanent housing when they leave the program. In December last year, single mom Courtney was laid off from her job working in a now shuttered inpatient transitional living program, aside from the flexibility that allowed her to sometimes bring her 7-year-old son to work. And then they go through this situation, and they say, you know what, this is how we're helping. We're helping using this AI, right? They've also proposed another solution, which is a master lease, which is where the city will come in and lease out the entire building. So they'll sign up for a entire, let's say a 10-unit building to commit to renting out all these units. So it's basically a takeover of that 10-unit property, where the property owner would have to then go on this master lease with the city, and the city would then, determine what they'd be able to pay for rent. Now, that might work well in the beginning, but you have to think about this. When landlords are desperate enough to where they have to sign up for these things, when this situation turns south, who is the landlord going to go after? Is the landlord going to sue the city in the city courthouse? It might get messy there, right? But this is where California is going. I mean, even squatters. You've seen, Squatter Hunter and all these people talking about squatters. It's going everywhere, national. This is going on every mainstream outlet, all over TikTok, all over Twitter and Instagram. They're talking about squatting. And there's actually been businesses being built out because of this, because removing squatters is becoming very, very difficult. And the reason that they say this is because, courts are backed up and it's taking a very, very long time, and landlords and property owners simply don't have rights over their properties to where they can rely on the city to do, what's right? And so what's happening? They have to hire third parties to be able to, evict these tenants or these squatters, which, they consider someone that lives in a property that provides them with a false lease, which is what they do, a tenant, right? So I believe when we see this, we see all these changes unfolding and we see it on the apartment association that they are talking about reducing the tenant's rent downward, this is what's going to happen. I mean, Gavin Newsom came out in 2021 saying, look, if you're renting an apartment or a house and you can't really afford it, don't worry about it. We will come out and we'll pay all your back rent, just stop paying rent. He was incentivizing tenants not to pay rent. But then at the end, they didn't pay. They did not pay. They said they'd given millions out. But if you look at where that money actually went, it wasn't to the small business. It wasn't to the mom and pop landlord or the everyday tenant. It went to the institutional large scale investors, right? And that's who I think is going to benefit from all this. All of this change that's unfolding, all of these new policies, it's going to be the large investor, the big, big business, similar to Walmart and a lot of the large corporations that did extremely well in 2020 and 2021. They were the beneficiaries of that, and going forward, the beneficiaries of a lot of properties will be those big investors. Drop below. Let's have a conversation about this. If you are investing in property, I love real estate. If you're investing in property, just pay very close attention to what's unfolding to position yourself for some of this headwind that's likely coming. And if you'd like to fix your credit to position yourself for funding and financing, we'd love to help you at my company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, or any negative item on your credit report, go to GreatCreditFast.com. Click the link in the description just below this video. Schedule a free call for Monday. Catch you next video.